Well, good morning, everybody, and we are back with the Bishop. It is Car Chronicles, time for another broadcast of renewing the mind and the body for a healthy living. And while the notifications are going out, we'd like to send out a birthday shout outs to Gene Fry, to my guy Mike Lloyd. And if today is your birthday, I pray that your day is filled with many blessings, gifts, and love from all around, and that you enjoy as many of the sweet things as you desire. Just don't make yourself sick, all right? You deserve it. It's your day, as that song says. You deserve it. It's your day to go out, celebrate it, live it up. You've been waiting a very long time for this day to come around. And so now, hey, have at it. Enjoy all of it. If this is your first time watching one of these broadcasts, I want you to know that they are to encourage you, to empower you, to educate you, to motivate you, to inspire you, and to uplift you, to move towards your destiny, operating in the purpose for which you've been created, using the gifts that are within you. I want to say thank you so very much for being a part of the Back with the Bishop family. Your likes and shares and comments and red and blue dots, they all mean a great deal to me. I want to let you know from the bottom of my heart, I love you. I appreciate you. I celebrate you. Thank you so much for your prayers and your support, your consistent viewing and faithful supporting. It means a great deal. And so going on, today is Wednesday. It's time for our wonderful words of wisdom. And we are still talking about the series When They See Us. It is a 4-part series that was written and directed by Ava DuVernay, and she tells the story of the Central Park jogger case there that was in New York, in Harlem, New York. And so we're going on talking about just a few additional things today. I was trying to make sure I pulled out my little notepads. If you haven't seen it, it is a series that is on Netflix, and so I highly recommend and strongly encourage you to watch the series, as well as I would encourage you to watch the 13th and to watch the Khalif Browder story. They're all connected. They're all kind of interwoven together with a lot of similar principles and a lot of similar, if you will, topics or themes that talk about things that are going on in this country and things that we have experienced here. And so, but I kind of mixed the two together yesterday. I mixed in the Khalif Browder story in along with When They See Us. But again, When They See Us, it deals with the stories of Antron McCray, Corey Wise, Kevin Richardson, Raymond Santana Jr., and Dr. Yusuf Salam. All right, and they were all teenagers when they were arrested by police for apparently the Central Park jogger beating and raping. And they were 14, 15, 16 years old when they were arrested, and they were tried in court, and they were coerced into giving false testimony. They were coerced into giving false witness account of what happened. And so when those tapes were played for the jury, they were found to be guilty of the crime, when in actuality they were not convicted. I found out, I think that technique was called the Reed technique, which is where you try to coerce people into giving testimonies. And there were so many violations in that number one, their parents or legal guardian or attorney, legal counsel was not present when they gave these accounts, when they made them give these testimonies, and when they were made to be recorded. They caused them to sign waivers that would waive a right to an attorney, etc. There was so many things that was wrong with that. So a few things that I wrote down after watching the series again. As I said, I was going to watch the series again. It's very emotional. It's a very emotional series, but I highly encourage and recommend that you watch it, because this brings to light what has been going on in this country for decades. This isn't like it's just starting to happen. No, this is what has been going on for decades, which is why I recommend that you watch the 13th. It is a series that's on again on Netflix. So anyway, going on, because I don't want to keep you guys too long. One, know your rights as a citizen of this country. Know your rights. Please know your rights. It is so important for us to know our rights. One of the reasons why we perish is because of a lack of knowledge. That's scripture. We perish for a lack of knowledge. So the more you know, the more you're able to live. I'll let that be a Selah moment. One of the things that I noticed that I want to talk about, like, it was so many things. So I'm going to try to hit several of these. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow and be done with it. But life, one of the things I recognize in the series is that life after prison is not easy. And I think maybe it was Ava DuVernay that said it in another interview, that whenever an individual is locked up, though, their families are locked up with them. So it's not just that the system is taking away, your relative, but they are also bringing you as a part of their family into that locked up situation, of course, because the person that gets locked up, they need money, what they call for commissary. So putting money on books, because they need to still continue to survive, and they still need some of the basic essentials of life, because they are a human. And that's the other aspect of it. I think that sometimes media, it talks about the power of media. How media portrayed those young kids to be monsters. The media portrayed those kids to be, what they called them was like a wolf pack. So they were seen as animals. And I think that's one of the testimonies that was given about, from one of the young men, about being on the inside and how they're treated. So it's like they're treated as animals and they're not treated as humans. And we are all humans. You don't treat humans like animals. I'll say that again. You don't treat humans like animals. And a lot of times when people are put on medication, of course there are side effects that cause them to react in certain ways. They could be animal like, but they are still not an animal. They are a human. And so they take they take the individual. So the individual are locked up, their families are locked up. So they're needing to make phone calls. They still need to have human contact, human interaction. It also brought up the issue of solitary confinement, and I think it was the Khalif Browder situation that caused there to be a reformation regarding solitary confinement in minors. Because again, when a child is only 14, 15, 16 years old, their mental capacities, their emotional capacities, they are not fully developed. And so to throw them into solitary confinement or even put them in prison with whole grown men is not healthy for their development, for their growth. So life after prison, this is one of the things that you see, and looking at this story, y'all, it gave me more of a heart. It gave me more compassion. It gave me more understanding and more patience for individuals who are actually locked up. And I want to say good morning to those of you that are watching at this particular time. So they go through these traumatic situations. And then the other thing too, watch this, is that it causes them to have to mentally develop a type of guard, a mental type of protection for themselves, so that they, number one, don't go insane, or to be driven to a place like Khalif Browder, a place of psychosis, where they become very delusional, where they start talking to themselves, they start going, of course, insane. And so when they get out of prison, here's the thing that I want to talk about. When they get out of prison and they come back into civilization, they come or re-enter back into society. Most systems, most prison systems, institutions, they do not have a what's called are now a rehabilitation program to rehabilitate them into civilization as it is when they enter back into it. Because of course, if they go in for whatever and if they serve any time, you and I know very well that times change. Good morning, Lady Vero. You and I know very well that technology changes, and so cultures change, the way of living life, the process of doing certain things, it all changes. And if there is no rehabilitation program to let them know, okay, now you are entering back into society, into civilization, at a time where there's been so many changes, they will re-enter. Watch what I'm about to say. They will re-enter with the mindset that they had while they were in prison and even prior to prison. And so they won't really understand and know how to do certain things until they are taught to do certain things. But then also understand this, watch this, the mindset that they have while they're in prison is a mindset of survival. So they will learn certain behaviors. They will adapt to certain cultures so that they are able to survive while in prison. And when they enter back into civilization, they still have that mindset. They still have that same survival mode. But when, of course, it's not the same when you are in a quote unquote a free place, when you are not in prison. And so it's very difficult. And this is what we learned from Raymond Santana Jr. when you see his story, that it's very difficult, watch this, y'all, to even get a job when you are a convicted felon. Again, this is why, going back to the 13th, when you are a convicted felon, you don't even have the right to vote as an American citizen. Though you were born in the US of A and you have it on your birth certificate, on your driver's license, etc., any federal or governmental or state ID, it says that you are a natural born citizen of the United States. But once you are labeled as a convicted felon, you don't have the right to vote. Let that be a Selah moment. Could that be the reason why we have Donald Trump in office right now? And when you, just okay. Let me keep going. So they don't have the right to vote, but then number two, it's extremely difficult for them to find employment because watch this, y'all. Whether these individuals committed the crimes or not, who wants to hire a convicted felon? Let's say they were taken in or they were found guilty of rape. Say they were found guilty of murder. Most oftentimes they found guilty of murder, you're not going to get out anyway. Let's say, they're found guilty of theft, some little petty crime, but they are labeled as a convicted felon. It's going to be very difficult for them to, number one, find employment so that, watch this, they can have the resources necessary to support themselves, to be able to find, watch this, transportation to even get back and forth to the employment, to the job, so that they can, again, still be able to have the resources necessary or income necessary to support themselves in finding shelter so they can have a roof over their head. Again, most of these guys, watch this, had to go back home to their mothers. In the case of Raymond Santana Jr., he was the only one that was able to go back to his father because the others, they came from single parent homes and the single parent was the mother. Okay, Lord have mercy. Does anybody hear what I'm saying? Like, understand what I'm talking about? And this stuff is real and it's very prevalent. Watch this, y'all, in the Black community because we are some of the poorest people in this country. Okay, you don't have to believe it. Watch this. Looking at one of the statistics says that black men make up 6.5% of our country's population. Watch this, what I'm about to say, because this is scary. This is alarming. Black men make up about 6.5% of our country's population, USA. However, black men and Hispanics make up 40%, predominantly black men, 40% of the prison population. Now, you can't tell me that that's not strategy. You can't make me believe, listen, y'all, you can't make me believe that there is not a system in place that is designed to oppress and suppress and depress black people. Black, as we say now, black and brown people. Black men making up 40% of the prison population. And right now in this country, there are over 2 million. Hear me what I'm saying. Over 2 million inmates currently in prison right now. The majority of them, at least 97% of them, serving time for crimes that they did not commit. Okay, it's scary. So life after prison, they can't get a job. If they can't get a job, they can't get a car to be able to get to the job. They can't get a car to be able to get around, to even be able to put in applications. Of course, then they have to depend on the public transit system. And if they can't get that, then they can't get a roof over their head. Then they can't provide food for themselves. So in the case of Raymond Santana Jr., what we saw is he turned, watch this, y'all, survival mode. Going back to that. Yes, ma'am, Lady Vero. Survival mode. He turned, watch this, to the place where he was able to make money, to the streets. He turned to crack cocaine. He became a dealer. Do y'all hear me what I'm saying? Because this is, it's so important. It's a part of the system. And so if he turns to, watch this, an illegal industry, then of course he becomes another risk and a high risk for going back to prison, which is what ended up happening. Okay. There's so many things. It's so many things going on with this. Let me look here. There is, yes, ma'am, we must educate ourselves. Looking at the story of Corey Wise. Corey Wise is the individual. I gotta go. Corey Wise is the individual that got the worst treatment. So much so, in his mind, he doesn't even consider himself to be a part of the Central Park Five, as what they were known, or even now the Exonerated Five. He called it 4+1 because Corey Wise was the only 16-year-old of that case that was sent to adult prison. And in adult prison, of course, there are some things that they were not able to write into the script, or some things that we are not able to see and even learn unless he is he talks about it or opens up about it in a book or something like that or in an interview. But we saw how he was abused physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, sexually. He talks about being abused because he was in prison with grown men. And they were saying how, because their case and their situation was so high profile, that there were inmates who were in prison who were watching the story, who were learning about the story, and who had plans to jump them, to attack them. And it was not just the inmates, but it was also the correctional officers who were allowing this stuff to go on. So again, it even goes to what is the mindset of the correctional officers, that they will allow this stuff to occur. Like, what, something has to happen to their psyche that they forget that they are to watch over, that they are to protect, and they are to keep order in this place with humans and not animals. But it's almost as if they don't even care. The correctional officers, listen, they don't care. And so it goes to the point to say that one bad decision affects a multitude of people. I'm going to say that again, because you may think that what you do or what you say, it doesn't affect anybody because it's coming from you and you're maybe in a small circle of people or a small space of people, a small sphere of influence. No, one decision, one bad decision, it affects a multitude of people. Going back to the senior of the head or the sex crimes unit, which is Linda Fairstein, which was another thing that they brought up in the series, and how she was profiting. Again, it goes back to that money. It's about the dollar, y'all. She was profiting writing these books and these novels while these 5 young black kids growing into men were suffering and locked up in prison for something that they did not do. Okay, going on into sometimes re-entry into society. So we need to have a reconstruction. They don't want to use the word reform of our prison institution and the judicial system, because instead of just keeping them locked up while they are in prison, they need to be, number one, educated. They need to become educated. They took education programs out of a lot of prison institutions, but that needs to be put back in so that they can learn how to interact and engage in society. Of course, some of them have high skills. Some of them are high capacity, high functioning. So some of them, like, Ted Bundy, they were able to work and find gainful employment while they also committed their crimes, which speaks to the fact that they also need to have psychological or psychiatric treatment and rehabilitation, because it says that something is broken in their psyche, in their mental capacity. Something is broken that caused them to have the view that they had of the world and of people, that they would even be driven or motivated to commit the crime that they commit, especially when it goes into murder. Most oftentimes when you look at a lot of interviews of criminals, of murderers, what ended up happening is they were individuals who suffered mental abuse. They were individuals who suffered sexual abuse, who suffered physical abuse when they were kids, either by their mothers or their fathers or a close relative. So they are individuals that had that broken and stolen from them at an early age, of course. And so as they grew up broken. Again, psychological. So do you see how this is in the system? All right, while they are in prison, they need to be rehabilitated. They need to have type of, not just an evaluation, but they need to have treatment so that they can become developed, they can become healed, they can become whole, things of that nature. Again, a lot of this, what you see happening is in poor families where there's a lack of education, there's a lack of resources, going back to, again, predominantly black people and Hispanics. There's also corporations. This goes into the 13th, and I'm getting off of here because I gotta go. The 13th talks about how there are corporations all across this country that are profiting off of the prison institution. And a lot of these companies and corporations were a part of what's called ALEC. And I think it's like the American Legislative Executive Council, something like that, which has existed now for a little over 40 years, or at least 40 years. And I was really shocked when I learned this because I did not know. But ALEC consists of corporations and politicians who would come together and who would sit at a table and who would make up bills and who would make up laws that they would submit to Congress to become enforced and to become enacted, and that would be set as legislation and law for certain parts of the country. Now watch this. This is just everyday people that don't really know much about the law, who would come together with these politicians and say, okay, this is what we want to happen. How can we make this happen? So it's an exchange. And some of the companies and corporations, y'all watch this, that were a part of Alex, because once Alex started to surface and come to light and people started learning who Alex was and what they were doing, a lot of them started to pull out. And some of your favorite corporations were places like Walmart, places like J.C. Penney, places like AT&T, places like Corizon, places like Verizon were all a part of ALEC, and some of them are still a part of ALEC. It's not as many corporations, but a lot of them are. So I think Corizon was the health institution that was a part of it, that was actually allowing poison to be put in the food that was served to the inmates at Rikers in New York. Okay, I gotta go. Y'all, this thing is deep, it's heavy. It is. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? Do y'all hear what I'm saying? This stuff is still going on. It is still happening right now. And so I'm sharing this so that I can encourage you and educate you and hopefully inspire you to go and watch the series. When They See Us, watch the series, the 13th. Watch the story about Kalief Browder, because this is going on now and something needs to be done. It needs to be done. This is why we need to be conscientious about who we're voting into positions of being governor and senators and president of the United States of America, because we need to have change, and we need to wake up and realize that we need to break this cycle so people can stop profiting off of us. Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, Lady Roach. It's a vicious cycle. So we got to educate ourselves. Thank you so much for tuning in. I pray that you have been educated, empowered, encouraged, motivated, inspired, and uplifted to move towards your destiny, operating in the purpose of what you've been created, using the gifts that are within you. Listen, y'all, go out there, go to Netflix right now, add it to your watch list and watch it today. Don't wait till tomorrow. Watch it today. Start it today. All right. And I'm signing off by saying, hello, 2019. I'm going up, and so are you. What's to come for you and for me? It's better than what's been. Mad love.